I had a really, really bad experience from my first health visiting thing, and I'm going to back this up by saying I understand why now, but I guess I was caught unawares. A health visitor came and my world collapsed, basically. It was not what I was expecting, and I was left with a really negative feeling, and that actually lasted for a couple of months afterwards.
You're listening to the Science Baby podcast with me, Kim.
And me, Leila.
We're two nerdy mums who have researched the crap out of parenting.
Seriously, you do not want to see our search histories.
Each episode, we chat about the why behind pregnancy, birth, and everything that comes after.
Because babies don't come with a manual, but with one born every minute, we reckon we can figure it out. Hi, friend.
Hey!
Hi.
Are you well?
I'm excellent, thank you.
Good.
Exciting news here. Doug is having the week off so that I can work full-time for a week.
Shut up.
I know, right? I think it's the first time I've had a whole day, notionally, to myself to work since Felix was born. So that's nearly 3 years.
How's it going?
I've filled my time about 100 times over.
Yes.
I've made a list for the 5 days that I have available. I've made a list that's about 20 items long. And I have completed half of one item thus far.
Yeah, it's amazing where your mind goes when you've got a free day. Like on days when Stella's in nursery, I have my to-do lists are laughable. It's just like, write that novel I've been putting off.
Well, that is actually funny you say that. Anyway,
wow.
So yeah, that's what's going on with me. My head is full of things and not full of toddler, and it's quite exciting. How are you?
There's a certain look in your eye.
Is it frantic?
It's crazed, but not necessarily in a negative way. I don't know.
Check in with me on Friday. Also, please check in with my husband. He's not thriving.
Yeah, that was my other question is Doug okay? I know it's only Monday.
So far, we've had about 3 major tantrums, a wee all over the floor as a result of a Winky pointing up rather than down incident. And they had chicken nuggets and chips for breakfast. I'm leaving him to it. I'm putting aside the maternal gatekeeping. I'm aware that it's something I need to do. And so I've shut the door, put my headphones on, and all is well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, whatever you can smell in the kitchen, not your problem until Saturday morning. I wish you all the best of luck in your own ways.
And how are you?
We're well. We're sort of a month into nursery germ season. So I think Stella's doing slightly better than me at the moment. I've regressed in the last 24 hours.
Oh,
I know
mate.
it's probably cholera or something.
It's amazing how you think that you've got a good constitution, but then you're exposed to the latest generation, the Gen Alpha of germs, if you will. And you're like, oh, wow, that is unpleasant.
Yeah. I realised my immunity was constrained to a very particular subsection of society, and now I've got them all. Stella gave Jake hand, foot and mouth. That's our big highlight.
Bless him. And how is he doing?
He was very brave, and I was not very sympathetic. But the nature of hand, foot and mouth is you get a rash, typically, on your hands, feet and mouth. And so my husband, who I respect a great deal, he was just wafting around the house telling me that his thumbs hurt. And it was completely true. His thumbs did hurt, and it was really uncomfortable. But I don't know if anyone can look their husband in the face and not laugh at that. So I'm a terrible person, and he did very well, and we're all fine. We're over it. It's all okay.
Excellent. Oh, poor fella. So this week we're going to be talking about developmental reviews in babies because you've just had your review.
Yes, so this week has been exciting for us because we have had our 9 to 12 month developmental review. There was a questionnaire and everything.
How old is Stella now?
Stella is now 10 months old.
She's 10 months old, so she's towards the earlier stage of that, isn't she?
Yes, she was. And that is an interesting thing about this review stage, which we will get into. But yeah, so she was at the earlier end.
Okay. And of course, Felix, being nearly 3, has had 2 of these reviews. He had one 9 to 12 months, and then he had one at around 26 months as well. So it's a 24 to 26 month review. So he's had 2, Stella's had 1. we've got some of that under our belts. So we thought we'd talk about what it's all about, why they're doing it, what to make of it, all of that kind of good stuff.
Because I certainly was not that aware of what health visiting was, what all these reviews were about. Didn't really know there were any until I became a parent, and suddenly all these people were turning up at my house asking me questions about how I'm feeling, how my baby's feeling, which was wonderful. And I think it's absolutely fantastic that we have that service in this country. But I could do with a bit of demystification.
Yeah, so give us a bit of context about the health visiting service. I had no idea about what to expect from it. And it is, you know, compared to what you get with the rest of the NHS, it's actually surprisingly proactive, isn't it?
Massively. Yeah, it's incredible. So basically, today, health visitors are qualified nurses or midwives that have undergone another level of kind of specialist training to operate in the community with families and look after families and babies. So I looked into this. So basically it was born out of a local effort to tackle infant mortality. So in the olden days, as it were, 1862 is where it all began in the records. And there's kind of an unbroken line from there to the present day health visiting service as we know it. In Manchester and Salford, there was a big targeted community drive towards sanitation and improving health and living standards, especially for families with babies, because infant mortality was high, disease was everywhere, and basically living conditions in 1862 weren't as clean and safe as they are for most of us today. So essentially there was what was called the ladies branch of the Manchester and Salford Sanitary Reform Association, who were trying to tackle this problem up in Manchester and Salford, and they employed what some people called sanitary visitors. So they decided they would employ respectable people, mostly respectable women, to go and visit families with young babies and basically talk to them, support them, and teach them about the importance of cleanliness, living conditions, how to make sure your baby has the best possible start in life. And at the time, it was particularly targeted towards improving infant mortality by trying to improve the conditions that these babies were living in. And of course, today it's been formalised into a national curriculum, as it were, of baby and infant development. Basically, it's there as a supportive service to try and spot issues, if any arise, early so that we can nip things in the bud. And the way it works is obviously throughout pregnancy, we're looked after by a midwife. And then what happens once you have the baby is you're still under the care of the midwife until your baby's weight normalizes. So it's regained, you know, there's this kind of 1 to 2 week, maybe longer period where the baby loses weight after they're born because of the shock of everything. And then they regain weight and get back to their birth weight. And at that point, your midwife says, right, you've graduated. Your baby is a working baby, I can confirm. You're now being handed over to the health visiting service, and then you're under the health visiting service until your kid goes to school. So that's kind of how it works.
And the health visiting service is what it sounds like. It's where health trained people, like you say, midwives and nurses, physically come to your house. Or I know it can happen at some children's centres and hospitals under certain circumstances. I think it can happen in nurseries as well. But they visit on a regular schedule to, like you say, check up on the family, check up on the baby. And it's not intended to be a social services style check. It's meant to be you are a new parent, you have a new child, is everything okay kind of assessment.
Yeah. So the first contact you have with the health visiting service is actually an antenatal appointment where your health visitor will come to your house essentially to introduce themselves and say, you're about to have a baby, you'll be hearing more from me. And I did think it was a bit like a social services thing, in that I was being checked up on. I know that wasn't true, but that's how I felt. And so we had a lovely conversation, and she said, oh, so you have you got the room ready? And I said, oh yes, it's all ready and very safe, would you like to come and inspect it? And she was like, no, I don't need to make sure that your baby room, it was like I was adopting a cat when someone has to come and do a home inspection. So that was hilarious. I think she probably thought I was a bit of a dork.
Yeah, it can definitely feel like that. And I think one thing to say straight up, because I think we're going to keep touching on it, is that there is this nationalised curriculum and there is a level of support that is offered by the health visiting service. And notionally that goes from the time of your baby's birth to school age, or even before your baby's birth, as you just said. But as we've been discussing things over the last few months, I've realised there is quite a lot of regional variation in the approach, the timing. We have been told that we won't see a health visitor now unless we choose to, unless we seek them out ever again, basically, after Felix's 26-month review. So even though they're there for support, they're not physically visiting us. And likewise, we didn't get an antenatal visit. The first visit we had was once the child was already in the house. But it was within the first few days. So I think there is a level of support, and they're a health visiting team, but they have offices, they have numbers you can ring if you have questions or are going through any form of crisis. But if you're listening to this and you've had a slightly different experience, don't worry. because things do vary a little bit. And we're going to talk about some of the timings as well. And this is going to be from our perspective. And as I understand it from talking to other people, there have been slight variations. So early on, in the early days, the health visiting team come to your house and they'll measure the baby. There's a lot of baby measuring going on, isn't there?
Lots of tape measures around heads.
Tape measures around heads, yeah. Unnecessarily naked baby, like, oh, they're lovely and warm and dressed. Now make them naked. Nappy as well. Because a nappy, a full nappy especially, is like a major proportion of a child's weight. It can be. So, yeah, that seemed quite cruel. But then that sort of tails off, and there are two kind of major developmental reviews that are longer and in more depth, and they become more about how this creature is now developing as a human and acquiring the skills that we would expect them to have as a developing child. That takes the form of roughly 1 year and roughly 2.5 years, lots of variation, and essentially it consists of a questionnaire that you get in advance, a home visit, and it takes about an hour, doesn't it? Is that how long yours took?
Yeah, we were about an hour. So interestingly, we're already getting into regional variations here because we have our health visiting contact since a little while after birth have all been externally at a hub at a village hall in my local area.
Oh, there you go.
So that's where we had our 9 to 12 month review this week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was about an hour, and it's literally the only difference is I think you're going to them rather than them coming to you.
So I think where it happens and exactly when it happens isn't of massive significance. But essentially, these two reviews follow a similar structure. You get the questionnaire, you get the time with the health visitor, wherever it is. So the questionnaire is designed to measure your baby's progress in lots of different skill areas. And from 6 months onwards, their brain is fireworks. Everything's changing. Their motor skills are changing, their senses are changing, their internal cognitive processing is changing. And obviously we can't look inside their brains, and even if we could, neurological science does not know how to interpret what they're looking at. But what we can do is see what they're capable of and see if that falls on a general trend of where they should be. And I say where they should be. We've said this before, we'll say it again. Every baby develops at their own pace, and in some cases will acquire skills in different orders. But there is a range of time when they should be expected to be moving towards acquiring a new skill because of the pattern of how their brain develops and how they start to interact with the world. And so these questionnaires, they're called the Ages and Stages questionnaires, are designed to, in a very accessible way, get that information out of parents who don't speak scientific lingo. So they're basically things that you can test with your child, and it's not a sit-down exam, but they're things that you might observe your child doing in their natural environment, in the wild, if you will, that can give an indication of whether they have acquired or are moving towards acquiring these skills which are expected for them at their age.
And it's really cool because a lot of this stuff you'll think, oh, when I put a bit of bread down, do they use their fingers in the raking motion or not? I've never really thought about it. So it's kind of cool. It's a bit of a checklist of things to do with your kid before this appointment, isn't it? It's like, oh, let's play with raisins in a bottle. But there are some very specific categories that are being tested, aren't there?
Exactly, yes. So you've got communication, which is about speaking and understanding, ultimately. Gross motor, which is about balance and large-scale body coordination, walking, essentially. Fine motor control, which is all your little fingers and hand-eye coordination. Problem solving, like it sounds, solving problems, figuring out how to interact with things in a way that will get you what you want. And personal social, which is the kind of self-care and social skills that we unconsciously do as adults, acquiring those skills and knowing that they're necessary in a way. So I'm going to let you talk about the 1-year ones because it's hopefully fresh in your mind.
So, yeah, under communication, the main things that the questionnaire will ask you about at the 9 to 12 month stage is, are they making sounds? Are they going ooh, ah? And more specifically, are they making word sounds? So are they taking a vowel and a consonant and putting it together? So are they doing the ba ba ba, da da da, ma 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 sounds? And it seems like, and you can tell me if this was a thing at yours or not, it seems like as long as they are physically capable of making those sounds, you've sort of passed, as it were. Because my concern was that she's not making those sounds in order to call me mama or call Jake dada or anything like that. And that didn't seem like much of an issue. So basically, I think it's the mechanical speech skills that they're looking for. And at this point, if they are starting to attach meaning to sounds, brilliant. That will come from now on, really. So that was sort of what they're looking for at the first one. What was the difference between that and the second one, in your memory?
I think if I remember rightly, for the first one also, there's a little bit of kind of comprehension of what's being communicated to them. So like pointing at individual things, gestures and things like that. And there's a lot more of that. I mean, we're not expecting complex language and understanding, but the types of words start to take on meaning. So they're tested on their knowledge of body parts, essentially. So they can either say them or know what the words for ear, mouth, nose, knee, foot mean. And so it's kind of attributing meaning to words and knowing what that means. I was quite surprised that they're getting at things like pronouns, so I and me and my, because they're simple words, but to be able to use them appropriately. And Felix went through a phase of actually mixing them up, and he still does to an extent. Like, he won't exchange he and she, but he'll exchange her and she in a sentence as he's trying to figure out the right word to use in that setting.
I think that's more of an indictment of the English language being stupid.
It has made me realise just how difficult the English language is because, yeah, I'm trying to explain, well, that's in that situation it's her and in that situation it's she. And I'm like, I don't know enough about linguistics to be able to explain why. And also relationship words like on top of or under or behind. They're not expected to say them, but they're expected to understand them. But I think because there's a huge range in how children acquire language, their expectations on the sounds they're able to produce are kind of looser. It's more about the understanding. So they can either say 3 or 4 word sentences or know a load of different words. Like, there's not as much requirement on that side.
That's really interesting because, as you say, on the 9 to 12 month questionnaire, there is, as much as there is stuff about physically generating speech, there are questions like, I think one of them was, does your child respond to at least one command without you showing them what it is you want? So, you know, I'd say, Stella, come here. Or the one that I do at the moment is I ask her where the cat is because she knows. I was like, Stella, where's Rambo? And then she'll look around for the cat. So obviously that says something about the way their brains are developing, that they're capable of understanding meaning to the words before they can physically say them, which is really cool.
Yeah. Whereas now I can say, Felix, can you find my phone, please? And he will go and get it for me. It's amazing. I don't have to get off my arse. He is one step away from a glass of wine.
As soon as he's got the motor coordination to not spill it and waste the wine, which will obviously be even worse.
I can't say that I've got that yet, so let's not hold him to too high a standard.
Good point. Very good point. Well made.
Speaking of which, gross motor skills. Gross motor skills. All about walking and balance, basically. So what was your experience of the gross motor section?
So big one is, obviously, they really should be sitting unassisted at this point, and they may be crawling or doing some interpretation of crawling. And they may be pulling themselves up. They might be walking by this point, but that's quite unusual. So what Stella's doing is she's able to support her weight on her feet whilst hanging onto something, which is quite an important milestone at this point. So she's kind of potentially crawling, thinking about walking at some point in the near future. That's the stage they want her to be at. But there was lots of kind of sub-clauses that I found interesting that Stella met some of but not others. So there are questions like, you know, if she's holding herself up on the sofa, can she lean down and pick up a toy and then stand back up again?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Not in hell. I think that's very advanced. Or, you know, does she lower herself onto her bum back into a sitting position with control? Mainly not.
No.
So there's all sorts of little sub-skills that indicate how ready she's getting for walking and moving around in a slightly more sophisticated way. So there's all of that sort of, as you say, full body control, locomotion,
strength as well.
Strength, yeah. So it didn't come up because she's already doing this, but I think if she wasn't able to support her own weight on her legs whilst being aided with her balance, I think that would have been a conversation. I think they're supposed to be able to, as you say, have the strength to support their body weight in an upright position at this point. How about yours?
So by 2 years, obviously, there is an expectation that they are walking unaided. And so the things they're looking at are some of those more advanced balance and coordination skills. Things like being able to kick a ball, so you're standing on one leg, or being able to walk up the stairs. You know, when you think about it, walking up the stairs, if you've ever tried this with a full glass of wine, either in your hand or in your tummy, walking up the stairs requires balance as you are constantly shifting where your support is. And so that's something they've got to learn. Jumping with 2 feet. We knew Felix could jump vertically, but I got the questionnaire like 3 days before the health visitor was coming, and it said, oh, can they jump at least 3 inches forward? And I was like, I've never seen him jump forward. I don't think he can. And I went to my parents' house and said this to my dad, and I was like, I don't think he can jump forward. He's going to fail. It's going to be terrible. But there was a little line in the tiles in their house, and he said, Felix, do this. And he jumped over, and Felix jumped over. I was like, right, you can do that. Tick. Who knows? It's just different things to try, basically, isn't it? So.
And that's a really important point, because there will be things in the questionnaire that you think, God, that's so alien. Of course my aunt could do that. We've never even thought of that. But then it's worth mentioning to your health visitor, because often they'll be able to say, no, if they can do X, then they can do Y.
So, yeah, if gross motor is full body movements, fine motor is your fingers and your ability to do things with your uniquely prehensile movie ends of hands.
It's mental how much they have to learn to do with these. Such a load of moving parts.
And it's not just the fingers either. I've got videos of Felix like in doing the isolations of each of the joints in his arm, of like, oh, this is how my elbow works and this is how my wrist works, and he's looking like a little operating robot of just moving individual body parts at once.
Learning his degrees of movement.
Yes, exactly. It's so cute.
I've noticed that when Stella is concentrating on something, she'll just absent-mindedly have her hand up like that, and she'll be looking at a toy here, and she'll just be doing this with her hands.
Oh,
right?
She's figuring
There's
it out,
some
yeah.
process going on that's making her hands do something while she's concentrating on something else.
I love that. Where are they supposed to be at for fine motor at 9 to 12?
At 9 to 12, fine motor, it's about starting to master the single finger control. So the classic one is, do they pick up a cube of bread between 2 fingers?
Who's turning their bread into cubes?
I know. This was another thing. I was like, I've got to go and get a bloody cube of bread. And the other one was, after some trial and error, can they pick up a piece of string between their fingers? Which I hadn't ever thought about how challenging that would be. But actually, yeah, for a baby that doesn't quite have control over their hands, picking up a piece of string would be really hard.
Really tricky, yeah.
So yeah, it's basically starting to master this business. How does that progress?
So that progresses up the arm in a way. So if the finger grasp is the first thing to come, by the 2.5-year review, there expected to be a level of control that translates up the arm. So the classic one is stacking blocks, basically. So if you think you have to stack a block, yes, you've got to hold the block. That's no problem now. But to be able to move your arm in such a way that can accurately and precision place it in a way that's going to balance, that is quite a skill, because you've got to have control right through the shoulder, elbow, wrist and hands. And similarly, threading. So threading is another kind of common example of something that is really tricky, actually, especially for a child that gets frustrated easily, of like trying to get a piece of string through a piece of pasta, or you can get special threading toys these days. But string, even if you've got like a sturdy end to it, like trying to hold a piece of wobbly string, knowing where to hold it, how to hold the other piece with the other hand, there's a lot of coordination involved in that.
Yeah, that's really tricky.
Yeah. So also quite a lot of drawing expectation. So have they got the control to copy you to draw vertical lines? And that is one question. And then horizontal lines is another question. So there's obviously different muscle groups and different skills involved in vertical versus...
Yeah.
Now, Felix, not a fan of the line, whether vertical or horizontal. Circles, on the other hand, he could do circles for days.
So he only likes to employ the muscle groups at the same time?
All the same time.
Not in isolation?
Exactly,
Fine.
yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So, yes, that's your fine motor control.
So basically at the 9 to 12 month mark, it's all about can you use your hand to hold the cup? Mm-hmm. But at just gone 2 years, it's right, you can hold it, now what do you do with it?
Yeah.
With the rest of the arm. That's really cool.
And then the next section, problem solving, is how you combine those physical skills, those motor skills, with what's going on inside your noggin, basically, of like, how do you figure out what you need to do? Now, this isn't, we're not doing sums or riddles or anything like that, but it's quite a lot about understanding how other objects and you interact in the world, right?
Yeah, so 9 to 12 months, there's a lot of scrutiny on how a baby will categorise objects, how it will use objects together. So questions include, does your baby hold one toy in one hand? Does your baby hold one toy in each hand? Mm-hmm. Does your baby hold a toy in each hand and smash them together? Stella does all of those all day long.
Oh, what a queen. What a queen. Amazing.
And it's so interesting because you could be forgiven looking at your baby and going, oh, well, she's such a strange little baby, she just grabs these things and whacks it together, and that's obviously her little personality. Not realising that, no, that's like a universal stage that they go through. This seemingly quirky habit that your baby has is something that every baby does, to the extent that it's actually a question on a form that you need to tick. So
it's mad,
cool.
Isn't it? So cool. Really cool.
But the one that I did not tick was the raisin in the bottle.
Or they've changed it now to the Cheerio or crumb in a bottle. So back when we did it, it said something like, if I remember rightly, the 1 year one said, if you put a raisin in a clear bottle, does your child try to poke at it? And I'm thinking, why is there a raisin in a clear bottle? When are they ever going to encounter that in real life? Also, shouldn't they be avoiding raisins for sugar, teeth and choking reasons? Did you try it?
Yes.
You went out of your way to put a raisin in a bottle.
So I didn't get a raisin. We don't have raisins. So I got a dark, I think it might, what was it? A coffee bean or something? Anyway, it was something dark and round and looked like a raisin.
You're such a bougie millennial with your coffee beans.
Yeah, I put it in a plastic bottle. The thing is, Stella's teething at the moment, so the only thing she wanted to do with it, she couldn't give a stuff about the coffee bean. She just wanted to suck on the bottle. So the bottle just went in her mouth. So that was a massive fail. I don't know what she was supposed to do. I don't know what the correct answer was, but she didn't do it.
I think they're supposed to poke at it, like an awareness that they should be able to get at it, I suppose. I still don't fully understand what that question is trying to get at.
Because I thought that maybe if they try and poke at it, that's a fail, because it means they don't understand that it's inside and that they can't get it.
Maybe you're expecting too much of her to understand that she can't get at it.
Yeah, maybe.
But the understanding that that's the direction to go in to get it, rather than, I don't know, who knows.
Help us understand.
But yeah, by 2 year, it's a real difference actually in the 2 year, because it is approaching more true problem solving and some of the skills that you need to solve a problem. Things like recognising a pattern and recognising the way things should be, not should be in the world, but like if you line up some toys and you give them another toy, they should see that pattern and add to it essentially in a line rather than just wander off with it. Or, if you start a picture of a stick man, can they finish it? to greater or lesser extent. But also, what I find quite interesting, and this is getting at that kind of understanding their place in the world and how it all fits, is that they do the mirror test at 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the mirror test is like most animals look in a mirror and they don't recognise it's them. They think it's another animal. But essentially, by 2 to 2.5 years, a child is expected to recognise that it's them in the mirror and not another baby.
That is cool.
And that is definitely something we used to see, because Felix used to play with his reflection in the mirror as if it were another child. And I can't tell you when it happened, but he definitely does know that it's him now.
That's amazing, because Stella still reaches out to the mirror to try and hold hands with it.
Yeah. Oh, that's
adorable.
adorable. That's so cute.
It's very, very cool. So the mirror thing, I guess, is a theory of mind question, if we're going to be dorky about it.
Yep.
So are they self-aware? Do they recognise themselves? One thing that they test for in the 9 to 12 month questionnaire is object permanence. So does the baby know when they can't see something anymore that it still exists somewhere? So one question is, if they have a toy that they're interacting with and you cover it with something else so that it's completely hidden, do they then look for it? So they look behind, or do they look under? Which presumably, I don't actually know when object permanence is supposed to switch on in a baby's mind, but it's certainly by this point that you should be seeing that.
It's a form of abstract thought, really, which is necessary for problem solving, because you need to recognise a problem which is essentially abstract in its reality, isn't it? Object permanence, you need to remember that there was an object there.
Yeah.
And see where it went. And similarly, with the mirror test, you need to acknowledge that there is a difference between self, other children, people, adults. So in the 2 to 2.5 was sort of the beginnings of imaginary play, like pretending objects are other objects. So like holding up a remote control and pretending it's a phone, for example, or carrying something around like a bag. That's a concept of, like, they know that what they have is not the thing that they want it to be, but they're acting it out and creating this abstract world for themselves. And Felix now lives entirely in his abstract world.
Yeah. Oh, how we wish we could go back there. Yeah, it's amazing listening to you talk about the 2-year one. There is such a big leap in cognitive ability from 1 to 2, isn't there?
There really is. We're a year out from that now. Felix is nearly 3, and it's all change again, you know. The things he's capable of remembering, conceiving, being conniving and, like, getting his own way around, you know, it astounds me every day and makes me swear.
Very, very clever until they start outsmarting you.
And then they're just very annoying. So the final one is personal social skills. So what did that look like for you?
So for us, that was, does Stella interact with us when she's playing? So the big one was, does she hold out a toy for you when she's playing? Does she give you the toy? And actually, I don't know whether this is strictly under the fine motor or personal social, but does she let go of the toy so that you can take it? That might have been more of a fine motor thing, but it's all about that interaction and including you in that process of play. And then there's other kind of things that also overlap a little bit with the parent attachment as well, that the health visitors are sort of gauging for is, do they smile when they see you? Is she easily consoled by you? And things like that. So I spent a lot of time with Stella before our appointment, just kind of playing with her and not wanting to guide her play, but to see when she brought me into it and when she was happy to do it on her own, what she wanted me to look at versus what she wanted to be able to manipulate herself. Yeah, it was really fun, actually. I really enjoyed that part of it before we went in.
Because it's not something you necessarily pay attention to on a daily basis, unless you're told to, essentially, are you? Because, yeah, you just play with them and you take it for granted that they're doing what they're doing, but then you're like, oh, yeah, they are actually interacting with me as another human.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I've only noticed with Stella quite recently, as she's acquired more cognitive skills. She's no longer just a robot responding to the stimulating toys around her. She's actually forming a plan. She knows you're there. But it's cool to see that there's a whole nother level of intention and of social interaction there that seems to be materialising.
It's exciting, yeah.
And how about, what is Felix expected to do?
So by 2 years, it's a lot of independence, I would say. It's focusing on independence. There's an expectation that he's recognising himself with the right pronouns, like I and me, rather than his name. You might choose to talk to a baby, you're like, Felix do this or Felix do that. And we talk about ourselves with I's and me's, but for him to be able to say, I do it, or it's mine, and things like that, that's an independence and a self-possession, which comes under the sort of personal recognition. And in the same way, that's the self-possession of his own body, if you like. So starting to show signs of getting himself dressed, trying to get his t-shirt or trousers on or whatever. Still does that very unsuccessfully, but he's trying. It's quite interesting, like, cutting out self-care and empathy and interactions as well with toys, and just looking at those social skills, if you like.
Oh, wow. And again, a big jump from being a year as well, as to what you're expected to do.
So those are the main sections of the questionnaire. And then how it works is you can fill it out in advance. The health visitor will come and they will grade it. The grading is really weird. They either give you a mark of 0, 5 or 10.
Right.
Now, why it's not 1, 2 and 3, I don't know, because there's no increments. It's just 0, 5 or 10. So if they are definitely doing it all the time, it gets a mark of 10. If they're doing it part of the time or they've just started, then it's a 5, and if they're not doing it, then it's a 0. And the health visitor will go through with you at the appointment and check on all the things of the questionnaire, tally up the scores, and then they will consult with a sort of grading system at the back, which will tell you if your total score is, I don't know, for argument's sake, between 70 and 100, then they're a pass, they're absolutely on track, no worries. If it's between 70 and, I don't know what, 40, then it will be sort of grey area, it's probably fine. And if they are below 40, then it's something to keep an eye on, and maybe they might warrant referral in the future. So that's how that basic grading works. But the question has also got space for you to write free text about their senses, about their communication, about their behaviour. You might not be captured by some of those questions. So during that, we had a chance to say, oh yeah, he's crawling, isn't great. He's not crawling, and this is what we're worried about. And then we got to boast in his 2-year one, like, he doesn't know 4-word sentences, he can say 7-word sentences. I don't know what if I was trying for extra credit at some point, but they're sort of like an aide memoir for you to talk about with the health visitor, because they will then go through that list and discuss with you. So did you have anything within that section?
Yeah, I found that really useful, exactly as you describe it, as an aide memoir of things in the run-up to the appointment. I was like, oh, I know, I must mention that, whether or not that's a worry or not. So I had a bit of a sort of a to-do list of things I wanted to flag. And what I really liked about the form for the 9 to 12 month appointment was that they ask you what you enjoy about your baby. I don't know if you remember that, but I loved that, because it's like, oh, actually, no, she's really cool. I really like doing this with her, and I love how fascinated she is with animals, or because obviously this is the stage just shy of 12 months when she's starting to learn how to show affection back towards you, and so you get so much more out of them than when they were in the potato phase. So I really liked that there was kind of a moment to celebrate how far you've come.
So the questionnaire is one big part of the visit, but it's not the only part. Obviously, the child is only one part of a new family unit. And so they do take some time to talk about how you're feeling as a parent and how you're coping and some of the things that are coming up and how prepared you feel for them.
Yeah, absolutely. In your 2 appointments that you've had now, what did that look like for you?
It was fairly summary, like there wasn't a lot to talk about really, I think, because we were sort of hyper focused on Felix, and I feel like they recognise that, which is fine. And so it was just the questions of, you know, how are you feeling in yourself and physically, and have you got a support network and things like that. I've never been one to overthink that side of things. Well, I say I never have been. I am becoming the sort of person to overthink a lot, but it's not in my nature to talk about stuff which I feel like is not a big deal. So I probably sped through that section. How about you?
Yeah, and heaven forbid you'd allow yourself to feel feelings and feel vulnerable. And
Oh no, those are absolutely forbidden.
so for me, I remember in the very first home visit just after Stella was born, the first time that a health visitor came over, I don't know if you had this, but I had a questionnaire about my mental state and my attachment with Stella. So it's a yes-no format, I think. They ask you questions like, my baby cries for no reason. Or I feel overwhelmed all of the time. So it's gauging your mental health in context with your baby's behaviour, and it's driven towards early warnings of any kind of possible safety problems at one extreme end, but also just when you're freshly postpartum, you need to be aware of possible onset of postpartum depression and things like that. So these questionnaires start very early. So I had this questionnaire once a couple of weeks after Stella was born, and then again at the 9 to 12 month appointment.
Okay.
So you're given the same questionnaire again, and again questions like, I have a lovely time with my baby is soothed by me easily, my baby smiles at me, and all of these things. So it's a check-in about that again. So I think in my area at least, the mental health check-in with the mum is quite formalised, which I don't hate. I think that's a great thing. But it was also a bit of a softer, open forum to chat about any concerns I had. I happened to go on my own with Stella, so Jake could have come, but he didn't because he was working. And so obviously if you're on your own, it's an opportunity for them to check in about your relationship, when you feel safe at home. So that's always useful. I mean, I think, as I said, my health visiting service locally is very supportive, so you can talk about anything really. I talked about my hormones being a bit up the and she probably didn't care or want to know about that, but she was very sympathetic.
I think if we're learning anything, we are learning that we all need to move to your area.
And, well, most importantly, we haven't even got to this yet, but I did indeed receive the free pack of gifts that you warned me that
gifts.
I may. Yes.
Oh, the great bounty of gifts.
I was convinced that I would leave empty-handed and that I'd have to send you a very grumpy text saying, you told me there would be free gifts and there was nothing. But I did indeed get presented with a bag of toothbrush, toothpaste, and a little sippy cup.
Oh, a little sippy cup as well. Fantastic. Yeah. Very cute.
Very exciting.
Yeah, we just got the toothbrush and toothpaste. Obviously, the sippy cups were clean out. We're still working through our toothpaste as well. It is the biggest tube of toothpaste. You get another toothbrush and toothpaste at the second year review as well. You may even get another sippy cup. Who knows?
Ooh, exciting. Obviously, budgets are in my favour this year.
Clearly.
It's nice to have a little prize.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's fair to call it a prize. I don't think we won anything.
You managed to keep your child alive for a year and yourself relatively sane. And here, have yourself a tiny toothbrush. I had a really, really bad experience from my first health visiting thing. And I'm going to back this up by saying I understand why now. And it was a combination of personalities rather than anything else. But I guess I was caught unawares. It was not what I was expecting. And I was left with a really negative feeling. And that actually lasted for a couple of months afterwards. So the questionnaire came, and I love a questionnaire. I'm the sort of person that will seek out a questionnaire to fill in. I just like, let me tell you things. And so we went at it with gusto and filled it all in, tried stuff out with Felix. And then the health visitor came and my world collapsed, basically. It felt like I was failing as a parent afterwards. But Felix was absolutely fine. There were no issues. But the way things were discussed, the way things unfolded was quite unpleasant. The second one, I was on high alert because I knew how badly I'd been affected. So when Felix was 26 months, I was really tense, I was really nervous, and it couldn't have been better. Like, it was a completely polar opposite experience. The health visitor was wonderful. Felix was charming. I had every worry, systematically deconstructed and dealt with. And again, it's like I felt like my whole attitude to parenting and me as a parent changed after that, but in the positive direction in that case.
It's mad that it has so much power to change how you think you are as a parent, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably more a reflection of me and my anxieties as a parent. And, willing to accept that, definitely. But I think it's something that's worth being aware of because basically, up to 12 months, I thought I was doing okay. Like, I was keeping him alive. We were making loads of science baby stuff. I was researching stuff. I understood it all, and I could see how it was, like, manifesting in my baby. And essentially, a few sort of, if you like, black marks on Felix's review made me question everything that I was doing. And the health visitor was not a particularly helpful health visitor, and it just undermined my whole parenting approach. So I don't know what the lesson from that is, other than don't worry, because they're there to support you, but also things can go unexpectedly, and be prepared for that, I suppose.
And do you think, obviously, thinking about it objectively, do you think your experience was driven by your expectations in a way? It sounds like there was a bit of a clash of personalities, and actually maybe this person didn't necessarily have the skills that they really ought to have had to be acting out in the community. But do you think that you had conflicting expectations that then you didn't have for the second time, obviously, because you then had the experience of the first time?
Exactly. I didn't know what to expect at all. And all I had was this questionnaire that I'd dutifully filled in honestly, and possibly a little bit conservatively, saying, well, yeah, he kind of does that, or kind of does that. Doesn't equate to a tick, it equates to a question mark to a cross. So there's a lot of subjectivity and stuff, and it was definitely a conflict of kind of expectations and just not knowing what to expect. I think, speaking for this health visitor specifically, he was a man. And I don't want to cast aspersions on the male sex, but there is something that comes with going through the physicality of pregnancy and birth and the hormone rush that men just don't get. And they can be excellent fathers, they can be excellent nurses, they can be perfectly well trained. But I feel like there is an element of understanding that comes with having actually experienced this, and understanding the kind of neuroses and the underlying kind of tumult. What's the real word?
That's a good word.
It's a good word, but it's not a normal word. The underlying kind of insecurities and confusion that comes with it all. And I think that's what unseated me so much after that visit is, I couldn't just take a black mark and take it pragmatically. Like, everything was tied together. And so I think he didn't see how his comments would be received.
Would you be willing to share an example?
So Felix was a slow mover. He sat on his bum a lot. He could sit up. He was great at sitting up. He was a slow mover. And I basically said, I'm worried that he's not crawling. Now, it doesn't matter that they're not crawling as long as they show signs of crawling. I have now researched and assured myself. But he basically said, yes, that's a concern. What do you want to do about it?
Oh, right. So there was very little room for subjectivity there. And especially given that it sounds like Felix was at the earlier part of the 9 to 12 month developmental review window.
Exactly. And that was never mentioned to me. So I was saying, I'm unsure about this. He basically said, yes, it's a problem. And which I read as, your baby is abnormal, failing.
We'll never walk. We'll never crawl.
Basically. And I'm sure he meant it as, what would you like the next steps to be? Do you watch it, or do we want a referral? But actually he said, what do you want to do about it? And I'm like, I'm a first-time mum. I don't know. You've just told me I've failed to make him move.
We've just established I'm a terrible mother. You tell me what we need to do next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was, it was like a slap in the face. 2 months down the line, he bum shuffled. He never crawled. And by 15 months, he was walking like you'd never know. And now I can't catch him. There was clearly no problem. I had to do a lot of independent research and soul searching to accept that I wasn't a complete failure as a mother. But, if you're of a sensitive disposition, as I clearly have discovered that I am, some of us are,
Yes, especially with your motherhood and your firstborn child.
The whole point of Science Baby, the whole point of doing what I've done is because I need to know, because I'm an anxious parent, because I need to know why everything is the way it is. And nobody met me in the middle with that. And I was expecting that, I suppose. So back to your original question, was it a mismatch of expectations? 100%.
And it is interesting that you raise the point, you raise it tentatively that this was a man and that may have been, obviously, as you say, not to overgeneralise, but I wanted to pick up on that because in researching for this podcast, I read a lovely article written by a male health visitor who, I think he is the only male health visitor in his area because it is a very female dominated profession. And he says that he uses his position as a male health visitor to make a point of supporting the dads in families. Because if you think about it from the dad's point of view, you've got this female, probably very maternally inclined person coming into your house, talking to the mum about your baby, talking to the mum about how they're doing. And actually, I hadn't really realised before reading this article that the man probably feels like a third part in that. So it's quite nice that this health visitor had identified that gap in the care and is working to fill it in his area. But it then does raise the question of who is the best person to then talk to the mum. Maybe a female is the best person to talk to the mum for the reasons you describe.
I have no problems with the concept of a male health visitor, and I will bare my soul to a man just as well as a woman. But it does beg the question of if there was something quite personal or physical, what happens in that situation?
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer to that is.
I would be really interested to hear from the science baby community on this, because obviously we want to fall way short of making any generalisations. And of course, we need to acknowledge that not all families are a male and a female and a baby.
Of course. Yeah.
And so how the hell does that work when we're talking about gender roles in health visiting? So it's really complicated. So I would love to hear other stories and how this all kind of fits in, really. I think that would be really interesting.
Definitely. I think the take home is that the personality of the person in front of you and your own personality will affect your experience. I think you are a very level-headed, clear-minded parent compared to my anxious, overly sensitive, what the F am I doing with my life kind of a parent.
I think that's far too generous.
It's a sliding scale. But I'm curious to hear how you found it.
Well, it was really positive. It's so interesting that you talk about the specific things that were a concern and how they were acknowledged and then projected back at you. Because I had the opposite experience with the same concerns, to be honest with you. So the two things that I went in wanting to flag that I was a bit worried about Stella not doing. Again, she was just shy of 10 months. So like Felix, slightly at the earlier end of the 9 to 12 month window, so I totally expected she wouldn't be, jumping over climbing frames or anything yet. But I was a bit worried that she wasn't crawling correctly. She was crawling, it wasn't correctly. So she was sort of dragging herself along the floor with one side. So definitely not fitting the definition of crawling. And she doesn't say words yet.
Right.
And so they're the two things that I wanted to flag. So she started crawling properly an hour before we left the house for the appointment.
Classic.
So I was furious because already my questionnaires out of date and I'd done it in ink. Absolutely unacceptable. Obviously, apart from absolutely ruining the questionnaire, which I haven't forgiven her for yet, the crawling thing was fine. But she's still not saying words. So that was the main thing I talked to the health visitor about. I said, look, she's kind of accidentally strings consonants and vowels together, but it doesn't happen very often, and she certainly doesn't know mama or dada or anything like that. And she said, well, look, you'll see, because I don't know if this works the same way in your region, but we're given like a 9 to 10 month questionnaire and a 12-month questionnaire to kind of cover the two ends, because there is such a big difference developmentally between 9 months and 12 months. And so they kind of have to try and catch that whole variation with one appointment. And she said, look, 100% you will find by the time she gets to 12 months so much would have changed with her and she'll be babbling all over the place.
Well, it's a quarter of their lives, isn't it?
Really good point. Yes.
It's a quarter of their lives between 9 and 12 months. So that's like Yeah.
With a
It's mad.
brain that is fizzing to life constantly, so much more than ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And it's really interesting because she does exactly the same thing as the house visitor did with you in your first one. But rather than saying, what do you want to do about it? She said, hey, would you rather just leave it and reach out to us if you're in 2 months' time when she gets to that 12-month mark? Or would you like me to schedule in a call? I can give you a ring in 8 weeks' time and chat about it and see where she's at and if you're still worried.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, actually, if you could give me a ring in 8 weeks, let's see where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely interaction. She gave me the power to decide whether I wanted to put something in place now or wait, and didn't make me feel like there was anything to worry about, basically. Which
That's
is
excellent.
just how you're supposed to do it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show the power of words. And we've talked about this before. It can turn on a dime, can't it? And everybody is different. And I don't envy the training of these nurses and midwives to be able to read a situation and deal with it in the most empathetic way, because you never really know what you're dealing with. But I'm so pleased that they reassured you and that was a positive experience for you.
Yeah, it was. I am very similar to you in that I want an A star, especially when there's a questionnaire involved. She was not forthcoming with the score.
That's one of the things that unseated me as well, because we got the score, and if on the back of the questionnaire there is a grading system, and it is printed in black and white, obviously, so it goes from white to grey to black. And again, our health visitor in that first one said, well, yes, he is in the black. Now, what does that signal to me? Like, straight away, he's in the black.
Total failure.
You are a
across the board.
failure as a parent, and I'm going to remove your child, is what my babel fish inside my ear said to me. So, yeah, maybe it's better that you didn't see the score, because perhaps the score was in the black for you. But how would you feel if you'd have walked out and known that she had failed? Like, far from got an A star, like, numerically on their scoring system, she had failed.
I wonder if there's something in that actually maybe in the time between Felix having his and now, it's fallen out of favour for that reason. Or maybe regionally, some services in local areas decide we're not going to do that because it just causes unnecessary worry.
Potentially
Very
so.
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, I'm pleased.
Generally, I found the contact time with the health visiting service very reassuring through the whole process. So it's good to have it at this stage where I think from sort of 6 or 7 months onwards, there's so many skills coming online every week, every month, that it's really great to have a formal check-in at this age, which is presumably why it's designed that way. Do they check in with you mentally at the 2-year review, or do they not care about it anymore?
I think so. Again, it's the same sort of questions about support networks and asking about nursery and things like that, and check in with your just general health and temper. But again, Felix stole the show, I think. So we got through the questionnaire, but then Felix was being so cute and charming. He brought her one of his Thomas the Tank books. And in the Thomas the Tank books, there's like a little map of Sodor, of where Thomas the Tank Engine lives. And so he sat with the health visitor, and she was asking him where the sailboat was and the lighthouse and where the castle was. And he was being such a teacher's pet. Couldn't believe it. He was like, this one, that one. And she says, well, I can see he's got no problems. I'm like, I will.
Oh my God, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
I know,
Dr.
what a
Batterson?
little swat.
Little nerd.
So proud of him.
Oh, good work, Felix.
Well, and good work, Stella, for learning to crawl at the 11th hour
In the nick of time.
and ruining all of your questionnaire filling in. I love that.
But all in all, I'd be so interested to know what everyone's experience is, because it feels like the resounding thing is that there is so much variation across the country.
Even for something that is notionally standardised.
Yeah, definitely. What colour was your sippy cup? Let us know in the comments.
Did you get one? Are you in a deprived area like me with no sippy cup at all? Or did you get a little Stanley flask?
Oh yeah, I wonder what they get in like North London. So as a veteran, Leila, of this process.
That's me. Two reviews down, yeah.
2 whole reviews. How would you say we can best prepare? What would you do?
I mean, don't feel like you've got to prepare like it's an exam, because it really isn't. But some of the things we've talked about, when you've got your review date and potentially you've got your questionnaire, have a look at the things and practice them with your child, because they might be capable of things you don't even realise, like the jumping example. Or, for example, Felix has never been interested in stacking blocks. I've never seen him stack blocks. He reportedly does it at nursery, but I've never seen him do it. And so you can look at the skills and think about some of the things that they're trying to do and see if they're replicating them in other ways, so that you can talk to your health visitor about that question. So instead of getting an all-out fail, you could say, well, he's not interested in stacking blocks, but he will, I don't know, do something else. Yeah, just try things out with your kid. I love the fact that, you know, for the personal social section, that you spent time noticing your child, actually noticing how they're experiencing the world, because that's really enriching as well.
Absolutely, because I think often we can be guilty of not noticing the little things because we're just trying to get through the bloody day unscathed. And, oh, my child is quiet for 5 minutes, I'm just going to stare blankly at the wall and try and defrag, which is very, very important for your own mental health. Don't get me wrong. But if you do have the mental capacity to sort of notice what your child is doing during those quieter moments, there is a lot more going on than it seems under the hood.
Mm-hmm. And as a veteran of the rise and fall of your self-confidence as a parent, I can also say that it is nothing to worry about. Even if you're worried about it, and even if you've had one and you feel bad about it, they are there to support you. And so if for whatever reason you've been left feeling uncertain, unhappy, whatever, don't do what I did and let it eat away at you for 3 months. Go and talk to someone. Go back to the health visiting team. It's not social services. You are not going to have your child taken away by saying that you have concerns that they're not crawling. They're there to support you. And I think it really pays to remember that. It's not a test. It's not an exam. They're not failing. You're not failing. They're just checking if anything is worth flagging in the future so that a child can be referred to specialists if they need it.
Yeah, and it feels like we've both, in different ways, had this, in that they're there to offer you services that will support you. They're not here to tell you that you're doing a terrible job and that some specialist is going to be thrust on you. It's to say, did you know that this service exists? Like, we took Stella to physio when she was tiny because she couldn't hold her massive, gigantic bobblehead up because she had a 99% tell head. So she was really, really, really slow with head stability. And I just said, I don't think she can hold her head up. And they were like, cool, let's refer you to physio. And so they're there to give you access to that stuff. Yeah. And often it's just a gentle nudge, isn't it, in the right direction. And then they're, you know, they'll do the rest themselves. And
depending on the availability of services in your area, that may be more or less promoted. But it is available on the NHS. So it will be there for you if you need it.
Yeah, and your health visitor should be your best friend and potentially your first port of call with that. They're there to kind of have a long relationship with you so that they know you as a family by the end, which is really cool. That's it for this week's episode of the Science Baby podcast.
Please do let us know how your health visiting experience went.
As we've seen, it varies so much from person to person.
Join the chat on Instagram or find this and every podcast episode at thesciencebaby.com.
See you next time.